Hey there, YouTube. Today, we're going to be talking about the importance of protein in your diet. Whether you're trying to build muscle, lose weight, or simply just maintain a healthier lifestyle, protein is an essential nutrient that can really help you achieve some of those goals. But do you know how much you really need? And what are the best sources of protein? I'm Dr. Nelson, licensed practicing naturopathic physician and clinical nutrition professor. Stay tuned through this episode because we're going to explore some of the science behind your protein intake requirements, and I'll try and see if I can provide some practical tips to improve your protein intake and get exactly what your body needs. So let's just get started. Before we jump into everything, while I am a licensed and practicing doctor, I'm not necessarily your doctor. These videos are for educational purposes only. Protein is a vital macronutrient, and it plays a role in almost every system throughout the entire body. There are some people who might be particularly interested about their protein intake, and this is based off of some of the small few conditions that I've seen in my clinical practice just within the last month. Individuals suffering from hair loss, osteoporosis and osteopenia, as well as mood disorders like anxiety and depression, all may need a little bit more protein in their diet to help to improve their condition. For example, if you're suffering with depression and you're taking a SSRI, which is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, now that medication is going to work based off of the amount of serotonin that you already have in your body. And it's going to help to keep that serotonin in your brain to help to balance out your mood a little bit. But what if you don't have enough protein intake in your body to produce that serotonin, which is a protein? It will lead to an issue where you're taking a medication and it's not quite doing what it's prescribed to do and you feel okay, or maybe not okay. But it could be related to just a slight deficiency of protein in your diet, and you may just need a little bit more. I see the same thing with osteoporosis and osteopenia. Individuals have had a early onset issue with osteoporosis and osteopenia, all because they just don't have enough protein in their diet, and hair loss as well. Again, hair is made up of amino acids and proteins, and so if you don't have enough, if you don't have the raw materials, you can't build with what you don't have. So it's really important to make sure that you're getting that in the diet so that way you can improve your overall health. And again, these are just a few conditions that I've seen within the last few weeks that, again, have played a really important role with their protein intake and not getting exactly what they need from their diet. Talking about amino acids are the building blocks to proteins. So when we're talking about the amino acid conversation and the protein conversation, we typically have to talk about those two things hand in hand. There are 9 essential amino acids, or what we consider essential. Basically, they're considered essential because our body can't produce them from the raw materials that we take in from the environment. So we have to ingest them from food. And pretty much all the remainder of the amino acids, there are 21 amino acids. Only the 9 that we need considered essential we can't make. The other ones we can. So as long as we're getting a nice, healthy, balanced diet, we're usually able to get enough of the non-essential ones and things can function just fine. So typically when I talk about protein intake, I'm often talking about the Goldilocks zone of protein intake. If you have too little protein, that's bad for you. You don't want that. But if you eat too much protein, that can actually be worse. Usually this is related to a protein signaling pathway called mTOR. I don't want to get too deep into the heavy sciences, but there's a signaling pathway that basically, when that pathway is on, cellular development and replication is occurring, and cellular growth and repair is occurring. Now that might sound like a really good thing at first, but if you have unchecked, unregulated cellular repair and cellular replication, that could actually lead to the onset and development of tumors and cancer cells. And so you don't necessarily want that pathway to just be on all the time, constantly running over and over and over. You want that system to be in balance. So you want that mTOR system to be on when it needs to be and off when it needs to be. And if you push too many nutrients, like proteins, it will create a situation where that signal pathway will be on more than it should be, leading to some problems. So keep that in mind when you're talking about your protein intake. With regards to too little protein, that could lead to a situation where you have a hypometabolic state. So you're functioning, things are moving, you're not in the hospital, but they might not be exactly where they should be, or maybe they're not running optimally. You're just running suboptimal. So making sure, again, that you're in that Goldilocks zone, getting exactly how much protein you need is going to be of vital importance. I hope you're enjoying the content so far, and if you are, my prescription for you is to press that like button. Don't forget to pop that bell and subscribe icon if you want to keep getting your weekly dose of natural health advice. So how much protein do you really need? The science behind protein intake requirements varies quite a bit, varies based on age, sex, and activity level. Your protein requirements do change throughout the growth cycle. And so also if you're injured or you have an illness, your protein requirements might change a little bit as well. You typically require more protein in your diet to repair tissues and muscles for individuals who have a lot of exercise activity or very, very physically active. You may need a little bit more proteins in your diet for that. Generally speaking, adults should aim for somewhere between 0.8 grams to about 1.6 grams per kilogram of their body weight in protein every single day. Usually I'll break this down a little bit easier for people to understand. And for the future reference, we'll pretty much just be mentioning them in pounds since most of the individuals that I work with are based in the US. So it'll be a little bit easier for you to do the math on that later on. So for people who are sedentary, ideally you want to be getting about 0.39 grams per pound of your body weight in protein every single day. That'll typically give you just about what you need so that you're able to repair, keep your weight pretty balanced, and get everything functional. For individuals who have a low level of activity or adults who are 60 plus, you want to go for about 0.49 grams per pound of your body weight per day. To be in this group, usually you want to complete about 15 to 20 minutes of intense exercise every single day. If you're doing that, then excellent. That's exactly how much protein you should be going for. And that again should help to keep you pretty much able to repair and keep things functional. If you're an individual who is in the moderate activity group, you should be shooting for about 0.59 grams per pound of your body weight in protein every single day. And again, to be in this group, you want to be typically getting about 50 minutes of intense exercise daily. And lastly, if you're in the heavy activity group, usually this varies quite a bit because there's a varying amount of intense activity that you can do. If you're doing more weightlifting, it could be more intense than if you're doing just a lot of cardio or a lot of running. Either way, your protein intake should be between 0.69 and 0.79 grams per pound, and you want to be doing that per kilogram or per pound every single day. So again, to be in this group, usually on average, you want to be exercising about 2 hours of intense activity every single day. So if you're doing that, you want to make sure you're getting those higher levels of protein intake for your overall health. So typically, what does this look like if you are a moderately or low active 150-pound adult? Typically, you're going to be intaking, when you do the math, you would multiply that 150 times 0.49. That gives you 73.5. And you want to multiply kind of that higher end 150.59 because that's the moderate activity. And you're going to get about 88.5. And so you get a range of about 73.5 to 88.5 grams per day. Again, if you're between low active and moderately active, doing between 20 or 15 to 20, maybe 50 minutes every single day of exercise. And that's pretty much how you're going to calculate your needs every day. Lastly, I just wanted to cover a few practical tips and strategies that you could use to get your protein intake in and get your protein exactly the way that you should, and mention some of the best sources of protein. Some of the best sources of protein that I've seen classically, I'll mention them kind of on the list. Put the list up over here. Chicken, canned tuna, salmon, eggs, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, lentils, peanut butter. These are all really great sources of proteins, and they have varying amounts of proteins in them. It is important to note that while the list that I mentioned may have some specific grams, it might not be exactly that way, depending on how the individual is grown or how the food is taken care of. It may have some altering amounts of proteins in those, and so it might not be an exact science exactly how much protein you're getting with each piece of chicken you have or each scoop of quinoa you have. This is going to be on average. You want to make sure that you're getting pretty close, at least based off of those calculations. And so that way, with some wiggle room, you may be a little bit over or a little bit under, but as long as you're consistent with your protein intake, it should keep you relatively on the path towards overall health. Again, it's worth noting that there are some additional very good sources of protein as well that I might not have mentioned. I did mention salmon, but fish is a great source. Turkey is a wonderful source. Lean beef as well as pork will also have really, really good protein outcomes, as well as some vitamin and mineral inputs as well. There are some plant-based sources that you could consider that are also complete proteins. buckwheat, quinoa, amaranth, as well as some soy products, all have those complete proteins, and so can really help to provide you with a nice source of proteins if you're concerned about just eating animal products all the time. Another good source and another good idea sometimes individuals will use is there are a lot of protein powder products available on the market. Oftentimes, using a protein powder can help to improve your overall protein intake for the day and can help to kind of just push you over to the next level in terms of your protein intake. So usually on average, when you're talking about a good quality protein powder, I carry two in my office that we get manufactured. And the two main types that we usually work with are either a whey protein source. I'll add these as kind of just a link so that you can see what they look like. You either get a whey protein source or you get a pea protein source. Usually the vegan sources are mostly pea protein, but usually you'll get some that have hemp and different other sources of protein that'll get you a general overall protein intake. Typically, you'll get in about 1 scoop. So in this pea protein that we have here, you get about 21 grams per scoop of protein. And in our whey protein source, you're usually getting about 19 grams. So depending on what your protein requirements are for the day, usually you can use a nice protein powder supplement to help kind of just fast track your protein intake, to help you get a little bit faster to your goal for the end of the day and make sure that you hit that all the time. Usually I wouldn't use a protein powder as a meal replacement. In these instances, I would try and use them more of as a snack in between. Again, just more to help boost your protein intake rather than as a replacement and get to your goals a little bit quicker. So that's pretty much it. We covered some of the importance of having protein in your diet. We talked about some of the best sources to include in your meal so that you're getting enough protein. I just wanted to bring home the final point of just making sure that you keep in mind, again, that protein requirements vary throughout your lifespan, and the amount of proteins that you need today might change tomorrow. So always keep in mind that formula that I mentioned up above so that you can always make those changes and get the amount of proteins that you need. You can add different sources of proteins and protein-rich sources into your diet to make sure that you're getting enough proteins in. Again, you want to make sure that you're focused on getting those complete proteins in. So whether that's from an animal source or one of the plant-based sources that I mentioned before. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for more informative videos on our channel. I plan on covering a lot more information just like this. So don't forget, if you didn't already do it, like, subscribe if you want to stay tuned for more tips and tricks on how to live a nice, healthy balance without doing any extremes. We'll see you soon.